Chancellor, thank you for talking to us today. We've just had GDP numbers. They're a bit disappointing, actually a bit lower than had been expected. What's your reaction to them?
Well, I think it's good news that Britain continues to grow and that we outperform most other Western economies. Indeed, we have a record number of people in work. But clearly, there are global risks, and the job of fixing the economy is not nearly done. So in the autumn statement, we've got to take additional steps to make sure the recovery is felt across the country, that we make the long-term investments in our economic future, and that we continue to take the difficult decisions to make sure Britain lives within its means, because that delivers the economic security and the growth for the future.
You're talking about taking additional steps in the autumn statement. That's actually a change of plan. Initially, that was going to be largely about the spending review. Now, with what's happened with the House of Lords last night, you're having to go back to the drawing board, aren't you?
Well, we will continue in the autumn statement to set out what we're going to do with public expenditure in the different departments. I will set out how we reach that lower welfare, higher wage economy that I think the British people want to see. That involves, of course, helping people with the transition to that economy, and we've said we will do that. But let's not lose sight of the economic security that comes from a country that lives within its means, an economy that's producing jobs, and the higher living standards that result from that.
But I think for a lot of people, it's kind of a question of not losing sight of the fact that you made some proposals about tax credits, about cutting tax credits, and now the House of Lords has essentially said, no, that's not going to happen the way you planned.
Well, I've said, of course, let's listen to concerns about the transition to that lower welfare, high wage economy that everyone wants to see, and we will do that and help families in that transition. But the end goal of an economy where people are less dependent on welfare, where there's a national living wage and where the country lives within its means, that end goal is one we absolutely will deliver.
So you'd acknowledge that your initial plan was too aggressive in terms of the transition to those welfare cuts?
What I acknowledge is concerns have been raised. I've listened to those concerns. Do you know, in the last Parliament, we made some difficult welfare decisions. For example, we took child benefit away from the highest earners in our country, and we also introduced a cap on welfare. In both cases, people raised concerns about exactly how we did that and the transition to those new policies. In both cases, I responded, but the end goal in both cases was clear. I think we have a similar situation today.
But what we have here is a situation where a lot of people who were expecting to get news of what was going to happen with their tax credits, particularly working tax credits, are now in the dark as to what's happening. We have spoken to a single mother, Helen. She's a teacher. She's been working since she was 14. She has a job, but she says she's expecting to lose £65 a week as a result of these cuts, as they were originally planned, and have to stop working. Now she doesn't even know what she's going to do with her career just in the space of the next few weeks.
Well, what teachers like Helen and others want to know is, have we got an economic plan that is going to enable us to go on funding great public services? The answer is yes. Have we got a plan to make sure that there's a national living wage if she's on a very low wage or close to the minimum wage, or indeed benefits from the fact that there's a ripple effect as that wage increases? Have we got a plan to make sure that in her community we've got great transport? Have we got a plan to deliver economic security for her and her family going forward, because we're a country that lives within its means? The answer is yes to all of those things, and she'll see, as others will in the autumn statement, how we deliver that.
But have you got a plan for tax credits?
Well, we've got a plan to get to that lower welfare, higher wage economy that the British people want to see.
But that's been thrown. The tax credits plan has been thrown out. That's the point. You had a plan, and that has now been rejected.
Well, obviously, as you can see, the House of Lords has rejected the proposal we've put to it. That's their decision, and there are clearly constitutional issues that arise from that. But what I'm focused on is the goal of that lower welfare, higher wage economy. I will listen to concerns about how we get there. I will help families in the transition. But I will not lose sight of the fact that if you have unlimited welfare, if you have borrowing without control, then actually there's no security for any family, and that's the worst thing you can do for the people you've been talking to on this programme.
Do you regret the way that you planned this?
I think what we did was
both in the Commons, I should say, and the way and the scale of those cuts.
But we've set out, I think, a very clear goal, which is to move to that society where, as a country, we're less dependent on welfare, where people have higher wages, where there are lower taxes for people and we're making investments into people's communities for the long term. That's what I'm interested in delivering. And of course, I will listen to people about how we make that journey and, of course, take on board their concerns. But let's not lose sight of what we're trying to build in this country. And by the way, today's GDP numbers, the fact that there's a record number of people in work, they showed that this approach and this plan has worked and will continue to work.
Just finally, there's another statistic closely watched, everyone keeps an eye on it, and that is the odds for you becoming the next leader. That's not done quite so well as GDP today. That's kind of gone down. Does that concern you, infuriate you when that kind of fluctuates like that?
Ed, you've done enough interviews with me. I think every time we have GDP numbers, despite your fears and concerns, we do an interview. And you will know that whatever the headlines are, I always say that I'm focused on this job, and that is because this job comes with huge responsibilities, and my responsibility is to go on delivering an economic plan that delivers security for working people.
Chancellor, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.